Let's identify from your perspective what has caused the high fail rate of Web3 games preceding this era.
The main problem, I don't think, comes from the actual game development side. I think a lot of it is this legal and blockchain implementation. You think about a lot of the games that have had time to be made so far, it's more either hyper-casual, casual, or single A type of games that have, less than 5 million budget, let's say. And then on top of that, they have two other swim lanes that they're not used to having to work alongside them, which would be a legal counsel that fully understands international law that affects crypto and, regular gaming law in each country, and how that can be effectively implemented, which is extremely expensive. And then you also need, at least in the prior cycles, a lot of blockchain expertise to correctly implement all these things onto the chain itself, which basically doubles to triples your cost depending on how it is you're doing it and what you're approaching it as. And I think a lot of folks didn't necessarily realize this. So I feel like the earlier side of a gaming ecosystem for people that were very serious about this took on a monumental task and just didn't have the money or the funds to do so. And a lot of these projects, startups that are not funded by something like Zynga or a large conglomerate that can burn all this money to do the research and get this right first time. So I think it's just the earlier waves struggle from a financial and capitalization point of view, and also just not understanding the full problem scope at hand. I think a lot of the software tech suites that were pitching them, hey, come use insert chain's name here, we'll give you a grant and we'll help you with development. A lot of that kind of failed and crumbled when the project got 6 months down the line and went, oh, shit, this is actually way more work than we thought, and we're not getting the type of assistance that we thought we would get. And the tools that were promised to us that we were told could do A, B, and C are not capable of doing each of those things to the degree that we want them to. That's where a lot of the failures come from. I don't think there was actually too much issue with implementing the on-chain gaming side of stuff from the game designer's perspective. I think it was all mainly on the other side, at least for a lot of the projects that I was exposed to.
Felix, would love your thoughts here as well, just the main failure points that you've seen in projects in your time, and maybe you can seg this into which of those problems that Mure is trying to solve specifically.
Right. When it comes to just gaming and integration implementation side, I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that a lot of engineers like to when they find a new tool, like a golden hammer, everything becomes a nail. And it feels like there's always this adjustment period where people figure out what the right balance is to be, for example, on-chain versus off-chain. So in my opinion, for example, you shouldn't overly tax the blockchain, because then we get choking points and it's going to become a bottleneck, like we've seen when Ethereum, Solana, everything has just been surging in gas prices just because the network is congested. And there are a lot of games that have basically been trying to build everything on top of the blockchain itself. And I don't necessarily see a good point in that. I think a lot of different principles that are coming out from different blockchains have had a lot of value. For example, Bitcoin's principle of the compute itself isn't necessarily relevant, only the outcome should be there, can stand true for a lot of different areas, like showing what's going on in a state of a game or something similar like that. And there are some like financial side aspects where you want to have the transparency and the security of the compute power on the blockchain to use, which I find is very, very relevant as well. That's kind of where Mure comes in as well, in trying to lower the barrier to entry when it comes to working with financial tooling and how to transact with the blockchain, and making sure that you get the relevant information on the blockchain. And then the other things you can just keep in-house and just make sure that you don't divulge any private information and so on. Those are my 2 cents, I would say.
Can you talk specifically about how Mure solves those problems? Like, what are the specific use cases that you're building to address, and sort of how does that all work?
Yeah. So the core problem that we originally set out to solve was fundraising, because that was, as I mentioned, what s6e has always tried to solve, is making it possible for collectives or basically more than one person to make a collaborative investment by pooling funds, and also making sure that everything is book kept and you know who has invested what amounts. And then from there, when there are assets to be vested out and given to people, for example, if you invest in a gaming token, for example, like Shrapnel, when the time comes when the token would be vested out, then you would basically not have to assume that the person that helped pool the funds is also going to fairly distribute everything for you. So we are strong believers of the trustlessness of execution for those things, and making sure that the data that is on chain is the truth and it's open. And you make sure that any type of relevant like debt or whatever distribution that you're looking to fix is going to be able to be executed upon whenever the person who's going to do a claim can do so. Now, we realized as we got more and more clients coming in the door that technology can be used for a lot more things than that. And we are now, for example, building like storefronts for people where you just want to make sure that you keep track of who has paid what, to have sort of like a order book of what people have ordered. And then from there, you can build off-chain systems to send order confirmations. You can even handle basically emails with digital assets or just shipping information or so on. Just using this as the quick and easy way of making transactions and making sure that money comes where money should go, basically. Where we want to go is even further than that. The real vision that we're looking to do is build something that could compete with SEPA or SWIFT multiple years down the line, where we can actually leverage the benefits of crypto to get instant finality of transactions and know the money goes from one point to the next in a transparent way to make sure that that is the money where it should be going, because there is a lot of power in actually having that transparency as well. So it's a very lofty goal. We'll see if we'll ever get there, but aim high, right?
I can definitely relate that there are real pain points in Web3 investing specifically that need these kind of solutions. Like there are a lot of like smaller investment groups out there. Felix started one that I'm also part of. And in a lot of these groups, it's sort of like you make these investments and you're just kind of hoping that because you sent some funds to an address X months ago that someone is tracking that and at some point it's going to be followed through. It's like, it's kind of wild. Like sometimes it's just like tracked in a spreadsheet somewhere, which is ironic when we have all this blockchain technology available. So as the sector matures, like absolutely these kind of solutions are needed.
Yeah. And that was the scary part because that was how we started as well. And I was like, this is too error prone. It's too easy to misclick on one cell in a spreadsheet. And then all of a sudden, all the numbers are seemingly correct, but one person has received a tenth of what they're supposed to receive or something like that as well.
Or 10x.
And then keeping track of, yeah, exactly. And then if you can basically distribute out a lot of the factors to make it so you don't have to be accountable for everything and the system can handle itself and people can come in and actually claim what they're owed, then that makes life a lot easier as well. Because if one person has a problem, they can reach out and you can solve it rather than making sure that everything is working for everybody as well. Especially when you're dealing with, I think at some point we've had up to like 600 different investors at one point in time. And that makes it very, very hard to keep track of what's supposed to be where.
Right.
Yeah.